Hey guys, okay, so this is just going to be a short overview video on what's to come for the next 2 weeks, basically, in class. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about something called the perspectives in modern psychology. I really like these. I think they're pretty cool to look at, but they can be very confusing, especially right at first. So today is just going to be an overview day, and if you feel really confused at the end of it, that's okay, because eventually we're going to break each one down and look at it closely on its own. So let me just explain what it is that we're kind of talking about here. If you look at the screen, you'll see that there's this graphic that has a number of different perspectives. Okay, so just kind of look with me. There's the psychodynamic perspective, the behavioral perspective, cognitive, biological, cross-cultural, evolutionary, and humanistic. Now, I do just want to kind of jump in here and say that sometimes the behavioral perspective will also be called the learning perspective. So if you ever see that, don't get super confused. It's the same thing. And cross-cultural is sometimes called sociocultural. But again, I'm just mentioning that. We'll get into that later. What are these things? Okay. So I'm going to just read this first sentence here, and then I'm going to give you an example. There are different ways of thinking about human behavior. Psychologists utilize or use a variety of perspectives, these 7 that we just went over, when studying how people think, feel, and behave. So basically, in order to explain why people are the way they are, there are 7 different explanations, if you will, 7 different perspectives that the scientific and psychological community has adopted. So let me give you an example. Serial killers, okay? They're always fascinating to kind of look at when it comes to what motivates their behavior. If a serial killer is put on trial, the obvious question is why, right? Like, why did somebody decide to go on a killing spree, essentially? And most of the time it seems pretty random. Like, it's normally, just like people they don't even know, right? So the motive can be really confusing. Like, why would you just go out and murder 10 people that you don't know? So obviously in the justice system, there's going to be judges and lawyers and things like that involved, but there's also going to be a behavioral health team. There's going to be psychologists and social workers and psychiatrists and different medical professionals who try to really take the individual, the serial killer, and dissect them from every level to figure out what motivated this behavior. So let me give you an example. If I were looking at the serial killer from a psychodynamic perspective, okay, that first one up there, psychodynamic, I would maybe say that the serial killer must have undergone some kind of horrific childhood trauma that left them scarred. And they grew up then to be this way because of whatever they went through, in their past. Okay. And when we learn about the psychodynamic perspective, you're going to see why that makes sense. Now, looking at the same exact behavior, the serial killer, and him killing, what did I say, 10 random people or something like that? If I'm looking at it from a biological perspective, I might say that the serial killer killed those 10 people because he has a chemical imbalance in his brain that makes his reasoning and thinking, decision-making, frontal lobe part of the brain not work. That this person is, a danger to himself and society because of something they cannot control. It's their biology, it's their brain, it's the way that they are wired. Do you see how we're both explaining? Well, we're both, meaning me, the psychodynamic psychologist, and me, the biological psychologist, both explaining the same behavior, but from 2 different perspectives. Eventually, what you will be able to do is look at someone's behavior and explain it from all different perspectives, all 7 different perspectives, is what I was trying to say. Because each one lends itself to a unique idea as to why someone does something that they do. You can be a believer in one school of thought more so than the other. Like, some people really believe that, it's almost all about biology, while others, they don't think so. They think it's more about life experience. But that's for you to decide, kind of your own opinion, as we go through the next couple of weeks. So that's just a short overview. That's all you really need to know today, is just that these are the things we're going to be spending some time on, and hopefully it makes sense as to what they actually are. So thanks for listening.